G'day scrappers. Thought today I'd talk a little bit about strategic stockpiling of e-waste commodities for precious metal recovery. So obviously this bucket here, it's predominantly gold recovery, but what I wanted to talk about was everything precious metals in e-waste today. Since today I'm sorting out a lot of my stuff that I stack for the future, I thought I might as well do this video and just talk a little bit about my reasoning behind stockpiling my commodities rather than going for gold recovery today. So here's my idea of strategic stockpiling of e-waste. See, probably one of the things that I wanted to mention most to a lot of scrappers out there these days is to probably not so much get too carried away with gold recovery. You know, scrappers these days, it seems that, you know, everyone's just so focused on gold recovery that they're, you know, almost neglecting the fact that there is other precious metals and rare earths in a lot of e-waste. Okay, so you got your standard gold fingers. Okay, that's understandable, and this is pretty much what everyone wants because it's the easiest thing to recover gold. And so, but you know, e-waste or scrapping is not really about. It's not all about e-waste for a start. Most scrappers scrap everything, scrap fridges and vacuum cleaners and microwave ovens. You know, or making money from scrapping is from your copper, your scrap, you're sending off scrap steel, your wire, your aluminium, motors, transformers, and even from certain e-waste, you're getting circuit boards, low-grade boards, things that don't really have much precious metal recovery in them. You know, we sell them, and so that's where most scrappers get money. So, you know, what I'm really noticing these days is a lot of people are scrapping and purely for gold recovery. So why are you scrapping? Oh, I'm going for gold recovery. Well, you know, it kind of it's real. You need a lot of e-waste to start pulling in money anytime soon in gold recovery. But my thing is, and what I mean by strategic stockpiling is that it's not just about gold recovery. It's about getting all the other precious metals out of things like BGA chips here and so on. So it's also about going for silver, going for the palladium, the platinum, the rhodium, the ruthenium, tantalum, and all those things, as well as other like rare earths and stuff like that. But all those hard things, like even tantalum, it's easy to pick the tantalum capacitors off, but it's very hard to process these because well, not only is there tantalum inside, there's also silver inside. So until, you know, you need a really high heat that is not really, you know, most people won't be able to get the heat to melt tantalum. So we're not going to be able to process these. So pretty much what we do with tantalum is what I do with everything, you know, precious metal recovery wise. So I'm just assuming that, okay, I can't process these today, and most backyard refiners can't process these, but the strategic side of it is, how about waiting until we can process these? How about stockpiling BGA chips until we know, till backyard refiners know not only how to get the gold, but also the silver, the platinum, and so on, easily, not just, sure, some backyard refiners do know how to get those other metals, but it's not an easy process. It's all done in stages. And so, whereas you send these BGAs to a company like Umicore, and they'll process these and they'll get everything out of it, and right today. So we've just got a bit of a gap in technology between backyard refiners and what the big boys are doing. So here is how I just sort my stuff anyway, and just stockpile it for the future. You know, I'll just go through a few of the items here and just give you a little explanation, and then explain how, basically, you know, how I rely on making money from scrapping rather than for going for my gold. I know that the gold is all here. I know the silver is here, the platinum, the palladium, the tantalum. I know it's all here, and that's all you need. Like that, you know, these tantalum capacitors, we know that for the majority of them, there's about 25% tantalum by weight. Okay, and then there's a very, very small percentage of silver. You know, it wouldn't even be, you know, 1%, wouldn't even be 0.1% of silver by weight, but there is silver in there. So we can stockpile gold fingers knowing full well, yep, we're going to get gold out of that. Crystals for a little bit of silver. So we know that there's very, very little silver in there, but there is silver in these crystals. So, you know, if silver is only worth 50 cents a gram, it's certainly not worth processing these at the moment. But this is what stockpiling is all about. So I guess the main message to scrappers here is to, you know, not so much focus heavily on gold recovery alone. You know, if you're asking questions on how do I recover gold from IC chips, how do I recover gold from BGA chips, that's basically saying that you're in a, you know, you're at a very early stage anyway. You've got a lot to learn, and you've probably had no chemistry experience and stuff. So you know, I'm just trying to take the pressure off a lot of people that are getting into scrapping because maybe they got into it, you know, because of, you know, they wanted to chase the gold, and that's fine, that's great, you know, because scrapping's a really great hobby to get into and learn about, and especially for the younger scrappers out there. So if you're like in your 20s or even younger, and you're thinking about scrapping eWaste and stuff for gold recovery, well, you know, you're in a perfect position, and you know, have something that you can say, wow, yeah, I've got, you know, BGA chips, and we know basically how much gold we're going to get out of there. But, you know, imagine one day we're saying, yeah, we're getting gold and platinum and silver and things that we probably don't even know about. Who knows? But because as a scrapper, there's so many other things that we can make money on, and so you don't need to do anything with these apart from just stockpiling them all the way. Just keep building them up and make your money in other aspects. Okay, we'll go for a little walk. Okay, so down here we've got electric motors from fans. Even that can go as electric motor. Okay, so we build all this up from printers and PC fans and you know, other printers and all that sort of thing. It slowly builds up, and that's, you know, we get, you know, I get about 55 cents a kilo. Same as transformers, a little bit less these days. Transformers have dropped down in price a bit, but that's fine. So, you know, sort of thing builds up. You get these out of, you know, all kinds of things. Okay, another common thing that scrappers will get, if you're picking up e-waste, you'll start building up wire. We sell that. I also got low grade data cable, ribbon wire. Can sell a bit of that. What's that? That's just mid-grade, low mid-grade boards. Got aluminium. So all kinds of aluminium here, sheet aluminium mostly. Another one is extruded aluminium. So obviously from heat sinks of all kinds, just straight extruded aluminium, all kinds of pieces. So that's another thing that we make money on. So, you know, this is what scrappers, you know, true scrappers look for and focus on when they're actually scrapping, because this is quick, easy money. Where are we going? I'll just go down the driveway here and give an example. Anyone want any monitors? But here's motherboards, right? Now, you think, well, hey, hang on, now I'm into gold recovery. Why aren't I scrapping out all my motherboards? And here, at the moment, there's well over 1,000 pounds of boards. And, well, there's really, as I've probably explained a few times already now, there's really not a lot on a motherboard for me. Because I get a lot of them, I also buy a lot of these boards, so people come and sell them to me. So all I'll do, as long as there's no battery on it, I'm happy. Occasionally I'll pick off a couple of things. It's usually only the crystal. Sometimes I might pluck off a few MLCZs off the back, but generally I just leave them as they are. And but you know, for me, looking at it, there's really very little gold recovery. These pins here and these ones in here, they're very, very light plated, and they're actually a different pin to process. They're a little bit difficult to process, and you don't get much. Very little out of here, little pins. Okay, the only good pins are like this green one and the white one, so they're okay. But this one being a blue board and being quite a modern, even the gold plating on these pins are very, very light these days. Right, so just these three pins are okay. Apart from that, you know, sure, we've got a BGA under these ones, depending on the BGA. If it's a gold corner BGA, that's good. If it's just a silicon chip one, it's useless. And a couple of chips, so really there's not a lot. And here, well, we can get pins of so many things. So, you know, just for these little pins here, I mean, you can always break these two off. Your board buyer will probably be happy if you broke these two off and kept them, rather than getting motherboard price for them. But so yeah, I'm quite happy to sell these, and I get my cash out of this stuff, and I turn, you know, well, this is basically what I was trying to get to, is that it's, for me and for some scrappers, for many scrappers, it should be about turning e-waste into gold by simply turning e-waste into cash and then turning that cash into gold, because not everything is good for gold recovery. And around the back here, other things that I sell that that can go either way are slot cards. Now, I don't sell all my slot cards. A lot of them I completely depopulate. But some I do sell. Say, for instance, this one. Everything in here is for sale that is going to be sold. I've already sorted out all the stuff and removed the fingers off all the ones that I wanted. But sure, we've got reasonably okay gold fingers here, pretty good ones. And we've got some nice chips and so on. But this part here is very, very heavy, and it really weighs the board. And so for the price that I get for slot cards as they are, this is better off just selling. Okay, same as this one. Now look at this one, you think, well, there's really nothing to depopulate anyway. We've got just a little crystal and one chip, and that's it. And we've got the gold fingers, but look at those gold fingers, see? And I'd probably, if these were good gold fingers, I'd actually depopulate this, because there's not a great deal of weight to it. But the reason why is, look at these fingers. So even compared to this one, I mean, look at the difference, right? And so there's no point in, you know, cutting these fingers off and going for gold recovery, because these have just got so little gold that I get a lot more money just selling it as is than I'd ever get the gold. And you can just tell the difference. Another example, this one's even worse, or about the same. You see, whereas we take this big one and look at the difference in the gold. And so that's certainly worth going for, you know, taking these fingers off. But then what we're left with is basically just a mid-grade board. And okay, we've got really good BGA chips around the sides here, just like RAM BGAs, but then we've got this thing here, and it's actually, there's very little gold in that, so better off selling it. So that's what I kind of do with a lot of things, you know, even low-grade boards. Okay, you can depopulate low-grade boards if you've got time, you know, and you can go for the transformers and stuff. But since a couple of months ago, transformers, well, here in Australia, have dropped in price. We used to get the same price as motors, but now these transformers have dropped down, went from 50 cents to 30 cents a kilo. So it's not really worth taking off transformers anymore for me, because you know, if I'm only getting 30 cents a kilo for transformers, I can actually get about 35 cents a kilo for the whole board and sell them junk as well. So so that's what I do. Don't even bother depopulating. Occasionally there'll be a really good IC chip, like here you see this IC chip is missing, so I've taken that, okay, and then just still sell it. So it's not really noticeable, it's just a power board, but I've taken the IC chip. And mind you, on these brown television CRT boards, a lot of times these IC chips will have more gold in them than any other chips you'll find. Sometimes they're unbelievable. So I always try and pinch at least the main chip out of it. And then what I do is I turn that sort of stuff. I turn boards that I don't really depopulate, and I sell them, and I turn them into gold. Right, not by processing, but just simply by buying myself a bit of gold. And so this is just a 1 gram gold, and I don't recommend buying gold in 1 gram increments, because the premium you pay is just you know, just too high for 1 gram. The smallest gold I prefer to buy, and I recommend buying, is this is 5 gram. Is it 5 gram? Yeah. So the difference between 1 gram and 5 gram, it's reasonably, yeah, but it's mostly in the price, because the premium is a lot lower for a 5 gram than it is for a 1 gram. That's about the smallest, but even that premium is reasonably high. So that's what I do. So basically, you know, it's quite a simple thing, and it's almost silly in a way, but, you know, selling stuff, turning that money into gold, you know, just buying gold. I mean, it's so obvious, but really that's all you really need to do. I mean, and just stockpile this. So I don't need to turn my fingers into gold. I don't need to go through all the learning steps of how to process BGA chips to get a little bit of gold out, because I also know that I'm missing out on the silver, I'm missing out on the you know, possibly platinum, and so I want all those metals. So I'm going to just keep stockpiling until you know, we've got the technology as backyard refiners to actually process all the metals out of it. And so in the meantime, it's a balance between stockpiling and selling stuff, and that's not boards, you know. Obviously I showed you all the aluminium, the copper wire, and motors, transformers, all that sort of stuff, batteries. That's where we turn some cash in. So every time, you know, say like these ones here, every time I get say $300 from the scrapyard, I might buy myself a 5 gram gold with the money if I don't need the money elsewhere, you know. And so I've turned scrap circuit boards that I didn't want and other things into gold without using chemicals, without using any process other than just turning over cash for gold. And then every so often when I sell, say, my motherboards or things where I get a reasonably, you know, fair chunk of money, or sometimes I go to the scrapyard and I'll sell a few £100 of copper. And then I'll come back and I'll use some of that cash and I'll get myself 10 gram bars. And so a 10 gram bar is even better value. This is about the best value in fractional gold bars. I mean, obviously, the best value is buying by the ounce, but that's just a little bit too high. And occasionally, if you're selling quite a bit in your scrap, you might have a good day at the scrapyard, get yourself a 10 gram, and there's your gold recovery, man. You know, that's all you really need. And then you don't have to worry about, you know, what purity it is and dealing with all the dangers. You just get, you know, you got yourself pure 24 karat gold in a beautiful bar. And then we got these regular BGA chips with the gold corners, north-south bridges. These ones basically are probably the best as far as gold recovery. The only thing is that they've got that big plastic thing, so when you're weighing them up, like per kilo, these are probably worth a little bit less than these ones. But once you remove, from what I hear, is once you remove this plastic part, and even though we've got, you know, a reasonably nice amount of gold here, once you remove that, this chip now becomes much more valuable than this, obviously because the BGAs are still on these chips here. But as they are by weight, you know, in stockpiling terms, these are the best ones to keep. I keep them all separate so they can get processed in their own way. It's a little gold one. These are second, north-south bridges. Third comes in at the metallic tops. So this has got these round ones. That's a nickel-plated copper heat spreader on top. So that's grade 3, and then grade 4 BGA chip are these ones with the silicon chip in the center. So it's just an exposed silicon chip. There is no ceramic, and you know, probably there's really nothing in these. There's very, very little gold, almost not worth going for. But the thing is that it's also got the silicon chip, and there is going to be other precious metals and rare earths in that silicon chip. And so this is really a future kind of stockpile. So remember when I showed you the CPUs, the silicon chips that are broken out of there, and some of that silver paste? Well, that's all that's going to really happen with these ones here. So we got little MLCCs that, you know, are going to be removed, crush up that silicon, put that in there, and the rest is probably going to be pretty much junk. We might get very, very fine copper bonding wires that may be very fine gold, but I'm not sure. But this is really, yeah, like I said, for the future. You know, we're not just going to go for that very tiny amount of gold. One day we might find that we can, you know, extract a lot of precious metals from that. So that's why I still keep them, but I don't value them very highly. Obviously IC chips, again for the gold, but some of them can have silver bonding wires, can have a bit of platinum inside. So for future, your regular IC chips or the flat pack type IC chips, legs on 4 sides, same deal, just keep building them up. Now, I buy eWaste from scrappers sometimes, and I can tell you that, you know, over the years I've found that a lot of scrappers sell to me that come into scrapping. They do it for about 3 months, they get excited, they depopulate boards, they get all these little things, pull off a few fingers, tantalums, pins, crystals, the whole lot, and then they just lose interest, and then they look up at where they can get rid of their stuff, and they'll find me, and they'll send me their they'll, you know, bring me their e-waste, and I'll buy it, and that's it, and they never sort of get back to it. But what I recommend to people like that are, you know, into scrapping for the buzz, just for the time being, you accumulate things, and then you go about life, and other things take over. Well, that's fine, but just don't get rid of your stuff. Just hold on to it, because you know, in a couple of years' time, you'll probably come back to eWaste, or you'll come back to scrapping, or someone will give you a truckload of eWaste to scrap out, and you'll say, oh, I remember back when I had, you know, all this eWaste myself. You know, and it's the same with on YouTube. I get a lot of comments from people that were into computers and stuff like 15, 20 years ago, and they'll say, oh man, you know, I wish I knew all this 20 years ago, because I was throwing out Pentium Pros, I was throwing out all that sort of stuff, and I was great circuit boards. Well, it's the same going to be in 20 years' time. You're going to get scrappers from today commentating in 20 years' time, saying, oh, you know, I was scrapping 20 years ago, back in 2017, and yeah, but I stopped and I just got rid of it. I wish I knew now that we could not only get the gold, but we could get the palladium, the platinum, the whole lot. I'd make a fortune, you know. And so don't let that happen to you. You know, if you get into scrapping and you start picking up things, and then you change your mind, you get on with life and other things take over, that's okay. Just keep the stuff, you know, just put it away. If you've got it sorted, and if you've got it prepared, ready to go for your for the next stage, then it's never going to be a burden for you. You know, it's different if you're stockpiling whole circuit boards. Well, it's always going to get in your way. But, you know, a few tubs of, you know, even if you mixed up all your chips, IC chips, BGAs, the whole lot, just in one little tub, you know, and just put it away and forget about it. One day, if you get back to gold recovery, if you get back to scrapping, you will really appreciate having them. If you don't get back, well, you know that they're there. One day, if gold goes through the roof, you know, something like $20,000 an ounce, silver $1,000 an ounce, you know, just all crazy stuff like that happens, well, then you're going to be so happy that you've left a tub of IC chips in your garage, or a tub of gold fingers, you know, or stacks of tantalum, and tantalum being a conflict metal. You know, tantalum could go from $0 to $15,000 a kilo overnight if you can't get the stuff. So yeah, so that's basically it. Just go through a few more things, I suppose, but that's kind of what I wanted to sort of talk about, and sort of change the sort of the way I talk about eWaste and talk about gold recovery in future. Is, you know, I'm not going to so much focus on the business of eWaste. Those of you that are interested in eWaste as a business, recycling, you know, I've made up quite a few videos on that, and so now I think I just want to go back to scrapper level, where rather than, you know, talking about high volumes and making big money, it's just, you know, what we can do with small components, and not so much in gold recovery, but in stockpiling, you know, for the future. You know, because if I can get down here, like these crystals, I don't need to see a silver bar to know that there's silver in here, and I'm just happy just to do that. It makes me feel like, because it's heavy, it feels nice, I just feel like I'm rich, you know. So yeah, so to me, I look at this as silver, not as crystals, and so it's great. I'm happy to store that, you know, even other kinds of crystals. Doesn't stop with just the basic ones. So we've got the flat ones, and I'm not going to worry about terminology. So these two also contain silver. Sometimes they can have gold, but if they do have gold, usually there'll be a gold base. If I can show you one. So I keep stuff with gold bases separate. Yeah. So here's one. So it's just like a regular one, but the difference is it's got the gold. Alright, so I just keep them separate. But yeah, more crystals, just keep stockpiling them. Don't worry. And then your big crystal oscillators, the long ones, small ones, very common square ones. I mentioned the gold ones, so basically crystal oscillators, but they've got gold caps. So if they've got gold bases, then it's you know, I just keep them separate because I'm going to be focusing on gold rather than silver. And my favorites are these crystal oscillators here that you see on boards. They're the little gold band ones with the ceramic base. I love these. You've got to see that little gold band going around the edge. You open these up and it's all just full of gold bonding wire and a little chip. So I really like these, and you find these on motherboards, mostly laptop motherboards, smaller ones in cell phones, server boards, telecom boards, and even slot cards. So there usually only be one, but I've had boards with 4 or 5 on them, even more. They're really good for gold recovery as well as silver. So yeah, just another nice item to just stockpile and just keep building them up. And you know, I don't need to find the that little bit of gold and stuff when I know that there's other precious metals in here that I'd be missing out on. So I just want to sit on it and wait until the technology meets my expectations. So yeah, you've seen some. We've got, you know, we've got the tantalum capacitors, yellow. These are SMD, of course. The black tantalum capacitors. Just stockpile them, no problem. We've got a mixture of tantalums. So they're all different types of tantalum capacitors. I just keep them all in a little mix. Obviously we've got MLCCs. So with these MLCCs, these are all hand-picked ones. These are not from boards that I depopulate using the air gun. I just do all these ones by hand, and the reason why I've done these is because I don't pick off all my MLCCs. I usually just go for the bigger ones or on very high-end boards. So it's just a little personal thing, but I do have a mix of just MLCCs from everything else, and with a mixture of resistors and all that from depopulating. But these are just all hand picked off boards, and it's just a little personal thing that I like to keep. Yeah, and then obviously you got pins. Partially plated pins are very common. I haven't really got onto my pins yet, but I'm just starting now. So I'm just once I finish sorting these out, I'll start on the individual pins and really start processing them down and turning them just into you know, pins like that, ready to go. And that's how I like to stockpile. Alright guys, well, hope that was a little bit of info for you, and just, well, it's more so to just let you know how I think about eWaste and how I stockpile gold recovery and precious metal recovery items. I'm not just focusing on the gold, so that's why I'm not in a hurry to just run out there and start processing. I mean, anyone can really process gold fingers. You know, I don't need a couple of grams, or, you know, even what there might be 10 or 15 grams in this tub. Well, there's 10 grams, there's 15 grams, and it's a lot easier to get it like that just by selling other things. So there's a lot of gold in scrap, not just eWaste, in all kinds of scrap, but this is the way you get it, and it's just simply by just selling your stuff, you know. So I get a bin full of motors, I sell it. You know, that's $10, $20, whatever it is. No. As a scrapper, your biggest volume in material is going to be in scrap metal, just scrap steel. And so, you know, if you're picking up scrap steel and you don't mind the low prices at the moment, you know, you can make $100 a week, $200 a week just on picking up scrap steel. And in between, you know, you'll get your odd computer, you get your odd television and printers and stuff like that, where you can get little bits for gold recovery. Alright guys, well thanks for watching, and look out for other videos on the subject of stockpiling or strategic stockpiling of e-waste. And yeah, have fun, and I'll catch you next time.